Mutts fans, our next guest played 821 games in the NHL. He went on to score 237 goals. He had 259 assists for 496 points. He got drafted by the Hartford Whalers in 1994. He was fifth overall. He went on to play 34 games in the playoffs as well. You can find him on TSN Overdrive with Hayes and Noodles, our good friend. We like to welcome to the Too Much Podcast, Jeff O'Neill. Hello, dog. How's it going?
Hey guys, how's it going? Good to be here.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you on, man. It's
Yeah, have you?
yeah, no, it's one of the ones that we've wanted for a while. So we hope that your email doesn't blow up here where everyone wants you on now, but we'll see how it goes. But how are things going for you? I know the Super Bowl just was over, but how are things in your neck of the woods right now?
Good. It's kind of an exciting time of the year for me. It's like the World Juniors is a big event, and you do that, and you're looking to kind of decompress a little bit afterwards, and then you've got it's kind of been a weird time in the NHL season with the break and the All-Star break, and it's kind of like the dog days in the NHL. But things start picking up really quickly. It seems like you head into the trade deadline, and that's another big day at TSN. And then pretty quickly the playoffs start after that. And I don't know what you guys think, but it seems to me once the playoffs get cooking, it's just like it's a long journey for the players. But the series seem to go by pretty quickly. So
Oh yeah.
it's like there's a lot of stuff, and there's like 4 or 5 months left of work before I start my like summer vacation on July 1st. But it's action packed, and after the trade deadline is over, things seem to move pretty quickly. So it's getting back into an exciting time after this kind of all-star break, kind of
Wow.
5 day break lull in the season.
Yeah, no, I agree with that for sure. It's I love every game that we watch, but I'm a big Leaf fan, and obviously getting you on was obviously a bucket list kind of thing too. But and I'll have to get one of these hats, old dog. So I know you like your
Yes, buddy, I noticed that. Is
yeah.
that a man-made hat, or did you
No,
find that online?
no, these guys sponsor us, old dog. They're out of Kelowna, so I'm gonna send you one. I'm gonna send Hayes a Toronto one, and I'll send Noodles a Calgary one because obviously Noodles loves
Do
this.
not send Noodles a Toronto one. I'll
No,
tell you
no,
that.
no. I'll send them a Calgary one because they make like the ones for Calgary. So I know you like your hats. I know you like your hats like this. So
Yeah,
I'll send you one for sure. But yeah, the
appreciate it.
company's called CDN. They're out of Kelowna. So my buddy Marco runs that company. So they're a sponsor of us. But and I know you like your swag, so I'll get you hooked up for sure. Big over.
Perfect.
Yeah. But I guess we'll jump into your career here. Like, where did things start? Obviously, you're in the Ontario area, but where was minor hockey for you?
My minor hockey was in King City, and I played there up until like just before Pee Wee, and where it was a small little town, and there was no AAA hockey available. And then when I got to the Pee Wee level, all of the small towns around King City, where I grew up, they formed a AAA team called the Richmond Hill Vaughan Kings, which was good because you know my parents and myself and my brothers, we always kind of believe, and we had this theory growing up where it was like, if they're good enough, if you're good enough, they're going to find you. It's like you don't need to play AAA. But at the end of the day, if you're playing AAA, the competition, the coaching, everything is kind of better. And it kind of preps you for what's kind of up ahead. It's more serious. It's more like little type mini type profession. It's just a better environment if you want to progress your hockey career. So I played Pee Wee in AAA in Richmond Hill, and then I mean I don't want to pump my own tires, but I was pretty good in Pee Wee. I was probably one of the best Pee Wee players in Canada,
Yeah.
and my dad realized that looking into the future, we might have to do things differently than any kind of Pee Wee age kids. So I had to his idea, which ultimately worked. And I give my dad a lot of credit because he stuck his neck out and did some things differently for me, basically making decisions for me that might not have worked out. So I went from Pee Wee and I skipped all of Bantam and minor midget. And I went from Pee Wee to major midget the next year. And I played with guys that were 3 and 4 years older than me.
Wow.
And that's all in preparation for 5 years away from that, which is the NHL. But I remember being at I was pee-wee aged, and my dad took me to a midget hockey game. And I apologize if people if you don't even call it midget hockey anymore, but that's what it was back then.
Yeah.
And I remember guys had beards and they were kicking the hell out of each other. And I'm like, I got to play against these guys next year. There's just no way. And luckily, my brother, he made the team as well. And we were playing on the same line, and we dominated. And I was like, I guess that decision worked. And then after that, I was like, okay, I just jumped 3 levels. Where the hell am I going to be playing next year?
Yeah.
And once again, on my dad's advice, it was the Thornhill Thunderbirds, like junior A team, basically junior B, whatever you want to call it. And I had a great year. I finished second in scoring, and that was my draft year in the OHL. And I went first overall to Guelph and had a great 3 years in Guelph, and then on to Hartford. And I guess the rest is history. Played 2 years in Hartford.
Yeah.
And it was pretty disappointing because I was just a young kid and I was happy to play with the Hartford Whalers. I thought it was really cool just to be in the NHL. And then we got news that we were moving to Raleigh, North Carolina. And the basic understanding was, I don't even know if there wasn't a demand from Raleigh to say we just picked there and we moved there and we're like, okay, we're here, and played a long time there and went to a Stanley Cup final. And I love living in Carolina. It was an unbelievable place to play. And then I got to Toronto at the end for a couple of years, and that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, exactly. We always talk about like mentors and how people help them out throughout their career. And obviously watching Overdrive for the several years that I have, and you talk about your dad a lot. Can you talk about a little bit more and like how much he's meant to you and your brothers? And like you guys come from a grinding kind of family. He's in the construction industry. I'm in the construction industry. Jamie here, he comes from that background too. But how that kind of prepared you to be, the player you were in the NHL too.
It's just unbelievable. Like I just mentioned, the leadership that my dad showed and the caring for me. And like we were growing up, we were a middle-class family. We didn't have luxurious things. We had a great life and we always did fun stuff. But I know that it was tough for my parents to put us all through hockey at the same time. And the one thing I'll say about my dad, if money was tight and I needed a stick, I had expensive taste when it came to hockey equipment because I always looked at Wayne Gretzky and Doug Gilmour and Eric Lindros, and I'm like, I want those gloves, I want that stick, and if something wasn't right, I wanted a new one. And he always came home from work, and I would go in the back of the truck because I would call him at work, and it was like he was really busy at work.
Yeah.
And if I had a call to make to my dad, it better have been a good one. And I would ask for a specific thing, like there was a national sports right near his work. And I would run out to the truck as soon as he parked the car. And I'd look in the back and it was always there. Like every time it was always there. So
that's,
you do things later in life to kind of try to pay back. You can never really pay back the total commitment that your parents make. But I tried my best to look after my parents with a house and my mom a nice car. And the older you get, and now that I have my own daughter, my middle daughter's in hockey now, you just realize the commitment, man. Like it's just, my daughter lives with her mom up in Collingwood, and it's like when there's hockey, there's no weekends off for any parent.
Yeah.
It's like every weekend they got hockey. So it's quite a commitment. And you see it in the kids. You want to pull every kid aside and say, like, are you thankful for what your parents do? Because it's a really big commitment.
It is. I seen. I think you posted the picture last weekend about your daughter playing and on Twitter there. So it's like how special that those moments are for sure. So, Jamie, we'll throw it over to you there, bud.
Yeah. Hey, Doug, I can attest to the fact that you wanted to be like everybody that you saw on TV. I remember growing up, Jeremy Roenick was my idol. Tried to idolize, and form my game after his. And he played with this gold Easton stick one year, man. And I was on my dad until he got that. And he was the same as your dad,
He even played with he switched later to a blue and white Easton. Do you remember that one?
Oh, buddy, listen, I remember. Actually, I just got back. My son, for the longest time, had my old Roenick jersey that was signed by him and Chelios. And I got it back. My dad wore it to Buffalo one year for a game and got beer stains on it. And Roenick actually met him in a pool hall. It was like, nice jersey, man, and signed it for me. But I watched in 2010, and this is a question. I don't know if this is an awkward question for somebody who played and had the career path you did, but in 2010, Hawks won the cup. I'm a Hawks fan. Uh, Roenick was there with Milbury commentating after the game, and he was crying. And Milbury's like, "Are you crying, man?" And Roenick was like, "Yeah, man, it's the Hawks." So watching your career, you mean you're drafted by Hartford, go to Carolina, you go to in 2002, I think it was, you went to the Cup final against Detroit. In 06, they win the Cup. You're in Toronto. Do you separate yourself emotionally from that team, or do you look at that and are you happy for them? Like, what are the feelings that you're feeling? You obviously put blood, sweat, and tears into getting that team going in Carolina. How does that affect you as a player?
That's a fantastic question, and I'm going to answer it, and you'll probably maybe not understand the answer, or it might be a little different from what you would probably think I would say. But in 2006, I was extremely jealous when they won the cup, and I found it really difficult to watch because I had put so much kind of effort into try to help that franchise become like any kind of relevant hockey market. And the year I leave, like we had struggles, like we missed playoffs and we got into the playoffs, but we got beat out in the first round and it was kind of around the playoffs and not really doing much. And we go on a run. And I know the deal watching sports now, it's like the Cinderella team, man, they generally never win. It's always
Right.
like a great story and it ends up being a great story, but they never seem to close the deal. You go back to the Minnesota North Stars against the Pittsburgh, don't win. Chicago versus Pittsburgh Penguins, it's like they don't win. Buffalo Sabres versus Dallas Stars, they don't win. The Cinderella never gets it done. But I was kind of cheering against Carolina. I'm like, guys, you seriously going to win the Stanley Cup the first year I leave? So it really pissed me off. Like I was so jealous. I honestly was like, I can't believe. And some like during the playoff run, they're talking about transactions and how they got there and blah blah blah. And it's like Jeff O'Neill out, so and so in, Corey Stillman and Ray Whitney, and I'm like, God damn it, you got to really put that up there. So it's like you're a part of something for so long, and then it's like you're gone, and they win the Stanley Cup. So you feel like you're like some kind of problem child, where it's like, oh, maybe I was the reason that they weren't having success. Yep. So I wasn't exactly tears of joy for me when they won the Stanley Cup. I was happy for some of my buddies like Rod Brindamore and Eric Cole and Justin Williams and Eric Stahl and those guys. But I think I would cry if the Leafs won a Stanley Cup just because it was religion for me to watch the Leafs on Saturday night when I was growing up and to put on the jersey. You want to talk about like tears of joy. I was emotional my first exhibition game. And I remember sitting beside Steve Thomas in Hamilton. I put the jersey on. It was an emotional time for me. I came to Toronto under some difficult circumstances, but it was a lot of fun. And just the lack of success they had. And it's like the New York Rangers back in the day, they talk about the record of no Stanley Cup. And now it's the Leafs. Everyone brings up 67. So I think to see these kids, and I do understand that playing in Toronto, everybody's all over everything. It's like, why aren't you winning? Why isn't this and that happening? And that doesn't happen in a small market like Carolina. Like you talk to guys in non-traditional hockey markets, they're like, we get to live our lives in non-stress fee. But at the end of the day, it's big league market, and that's generally what happens. So if these kids can pull it off somehow, and I'm sure you guys think the same thing out there in Edmonton, it's like it would be nice to see just the look of gratification on their face to finally get it done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's as a Leaf fan, like I live and die by every play almost. It's tough, but listening to you guys yesterday, it's like that performance that they have against these bottom filter teams is tough for sure. But I know you're close with Gary Roberts. How special was it to kind of play with him and I think you played with him, didn't you, O-Dog? Sorry. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Gary was a pain in my ass for a number of years. He obviously showed up in Carolina and he was Mr. Fitness. And I had to drive my Sea-Doo over to his cottage. We were both up in Muskoka for several years. And every morning I had to make my trek there at like 7 o'clock and we would train. And he was obviously so good for my career. The best years that I had in the NHL. I was under the tutelage of training with Gary.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of tough mornings where I was doing my thing out and about. And it was like an early morning. I'll never forget. We had a sled training session at a baseball field in a little town in Muskoka. And I was so hungover and I puked. I was dead. I was dying. I throwing up everywhere. And he just shook his head and said, you can't have both, man. You can't be going out at night and doing this stuff in the morning. So you got to pick which one you want to do. And trust me, it was the last time I ever did that. Yeah. But he was a great guy. And you want to talk about like just sometimes the mentor thing and learning from people, I think can be blown out of proportion because just not everybody's available to learn from, right? Some people are just some hockey players and athletes, like they just put on their gear and they do it and they go home. It's like they try to be good, but you just like playing with guys like Kevin Dineen and Brendan Shanahan and Gary Roberts, like you just pick up on the competitiveness and how much it means to win and compete and win battles and be embarrassed if you don't do that. Like those guys, if they played like crap, they'd be pissed off, man. Like they wouldn't take it well. And you talk about being able to learn from people like that. That was really valuable because when you're a young guy, you're just like, oh, I'm in the NHL. I'm making a bunch of money, win, lose, hit the booze, do my thing, whatever. But then you start getting old and then you realize why they're like that. Because, you know, when you're leaders of team, you got to answer questions from the GM, the coach, when things don't go wrong. And that's why you care so much because you don't want to be answering those questions. So as far as competitors, you look at those guys and they were a great help with me playing in the NHL throughout my good years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they were for sure great people. And obviously you looked up to Doug Gilmour. We just had him on our podcast not too long ago, and just what a great guy he is too. So
he's the best.
Yeah, he is for sure. Jamie, do you have any more questions before we finish up here?
No, man, I'm good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, perfect. So I guess we'll ask one more question before we let you go, O-Dog, is what's happening with the Leafs? Do you think this is the year that they get over the hump? I can't let you go without asking about our beloved Toronto Maple Leafs.
You know what? I think they've got a really good shot. I think that's all you can ask for. I mean, especially where they're positioned, guys. It's like, you know, they got their work cut out for them the way the Boston Bruins are playing this year and probably playing the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round. And they played the Tampa Bay Lightning last year in the first round. I don't even think Vasilevsky played particularly well. So one negative kind of thing going into it is like, what if that guy stands on his head?
Yeah.
Like, is Murray or / Samsonov going to be able to match that and give them a chance? So it's a tough scenario, but that's what you dealt with, man. It's not like they can change divisions or beg for format change. It's like they gotta face a couple monsters to go where they want to go. But I think they've had stretches this year where they've looked incredibly good, and you know, the attention to detail and the defensive scheme seem to be better than in years past. And we'll just see, man. It all comes down to Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and Tavares and Nylander. If they can elevate and at the end of each series, the opposition says we didn't have an answer for them.
Yeah.
We did not have an answer for those guys. So that's what's at stake for them.
Yeah, I agree. I do wonder if they get a guy like maybe Luke Schenn though. Oh, like the last time we really saw, like, I know Riley's had, you know, his somewhat ups here, but the last time we saw him with the great points that he had, and maybe at the peak of his time, was with Ron Hainsey. So I just wonder if there's a way that we can get, you know, if they get another defenseman that can kind of fit there. But you know, Mark Giordano's been good, but I wonder what happened on the back end for sure, and see where things go. But
we'll see you in a couple of weeks, bud.
Exactly. All right, O-Dog, thanks again for your time. We really appreciate it, and all the best to you and your family.
Okay, guys, have a great day. Thanks for having me.